Poor delivery girl gave up her delivery job to save a dying old man, unaware he's secret billionaire. She rode through the storm on a broken scooter, delivering food she couldn't afford to eat. He lay collapsed in his silent mansion, choking on his last breath, surrounded by gold, but no one to call family. She had nothing. He had everything. But when their worlds collided, only one had the courage to save the other. Why would a poor delivery girl risk her only job to save a dying stranger? What made her stop for a man the world had already forgotten? And how could she know he was a billionaire hiding from everyone, including himself? Mira's hands trembled as she handed over a plastic-wrapped meal through the rusted gate, her scooter idling behind her, tank nearly empty. Her eyes darted to the time, 10 minutes late. One more delay, and she'd lose the job that kept her family alive. Miles away, Arvind Malhotra lay collapsed in his dusty mansion, blood staining his collar, his calls for help ignored, his staff long gone. Once a tycoon with the world at his feet, now a prisoner in his own forgotten empire. She lived in a slum with crumbling walls. He once lived on magazine covers and Forbes lists. She rode on fumes. He was dying in silence. But when Mira crossed his path by accident, everything changed. Why would a girl drowning in her own struggles stop everything, for a stranger? How could she risk everything she had, for someone she didn't even know? And what happens when the man she saves, turns out to be the key to a life she never imagined? The rain struck the city like punishment from the heavens, turning every alley into a maze of puddles and filth. Mira tightened the cheap plastic poncho around her waist and pressed the scooter's throttle. Her fingers were numb. Her stomach had been growling since morning. The delivery app screamed another warning. Order overdue. Risk of penalty. Her heart sank. She zipped through potholes, her food bag thumping against her back, hoping the biryani inside hadn't spilled. There was no time to care. One more bad review, and her account would be suspended. No job. No income. No medicine for Amma. No school fees for Adi. Traffic crawled. Horns blared. Nobody saw her. Nobody cared. She stopped at a red light, glanced at her cracked phone screen, 12:42 p.m., 13 minutes late. The customer had already called twice. One more complaint and... Move, a man shouted from behind, splashing muddy water all over her. She flinched, lips trembling, but said nothing. Just grit her teeth and moved forward. She reached the old building and ran up 5 floors because the elevator hadn't worked since last month. Gasping for breath, she knocked. The door swung open. A woman snatched the parcel, barely looked at her. "You're late," the woman snapped. "The food's cold." "I'm sorry, ma'am. It was raining." "I don't care. I'm giving a 1 star." The door slammed in her face. Mira stood there, drenched, humiliated, and exhausted. Her phone pinged, low rating. Penalty applied. 45 rupees deducted. She looked up at the flickering hallway light, fighting tears. Her whole day's effort, lost for being 10 minutes late. She wiped her face, walked down the stairs, and stepped outside into the storm. The scooter refused to start. She tried again. Nothing. A shopkeeper nearby shook his head. "Battery's dead, girl. These old scooters, they give up, like us." Mira gave a bitter smile and began pushing it, step by step down the flooded street. She didn't even have enough money for a mechanic. She took a shortcut, an old road through a quieter, richer neighborhood. Huge gates. Creeping silence. No one around. Just trees and whispers. That's when she heard it. A faint sound. A muffled crash. A moan. She turned her head. An old mansion, worn yet majestic, sat shrouded behind an iron gate. Vines strangled its balconies. The door was slightly open. Curiosity battled with exhaustion. Her instinct said leave. But her heart heard the moan again. Weak. Helpless. She parked the scooter and walked up to the gate. "Hello?" she called. No answer. Only the wind. Then she saw him, an old man slumped on the floor inside, a shattered glass beside him, his hand twitching. Mira's breath caught in her throat. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what stepping through that door would cost her. But something deep inside whispered, he's dying. And the app notification pinging on her phone could wait. Mira pushed open the gate, its rusted hinges groaning like a warning. Water pooled at her feet as she stepped into the courtyard of the old mansion. The place was a ghost, windows shut tight, walls faded and cracked, vines choking the pillars like time had forgotten it. The front door hung slightly ajar. Mira hesitated. Her heart beat like a drum. She wasn't stupid. This was someone else's property. It could be dangerous. But the moan came again, this time sharper, a gasp of pain. She rushed inside. The foyer smelled of dust, medicine, and something sour, maybe blood. Furniture lay covered in white cloths. The only light came from a broken window, casting long shadows across the marble floor. Then she saw him. Collapsed by the staircase, his fingers twitching weakly, blood staining his collar, and a faint tremor in his breath. His eyes, sharp yet drowning, locked onto hers. "Help," he whispered, barely audible. "Sir. Sir, can you hear me?" Mira dropped to her knees beside him. He nodded, but slowly. His lips moved, but she couldn't understand the words. "Wait, please. I'll get help." She fumbled for her phone. The screen was wet. Battery at 6%. No signal. She ran to the door, raised her voice to the street, but no one passed by. No neighbors. No guards. No sound except rain and distant thunder. Back inside, the old man was gasping harder. Mira took a deep breath and began checking his pockets, gently, carefully. She found a wallet, but no emergency contacts. Just a name, Arvind Malhotra. Her eyes widened. That name, she'd heard it before. Long ago. A businessman? Or was it on a billboard? A news article? She shook the thought away. She had no time to guess. She needed to do something, now. She spotted a landline phone across the room, covered in dust. She ran to it, praying it worked. She picked up the receiver, dead. "God," she muttered. Her eyes searched the room again. Then, behind a curtain, she saw an old intercom panel. One button blinked faintly, security gate. She pressed it. Nothing. Pressed again. Sparks flew. "No," she cried, slamming her fist on the panel. "Somebody, please help." Still silence. She turned back to Arvind. His breathing was shallow now. One eye barely open. Mira gritted her teeth. She grabbed a cloth from a nearby table, rolled it up to cushion his head, and wrapped her jacket around him. "Hold on, okay? You're not dying today. Not on my watch." She ran out to her scooter. No time for repairs. She grabbed her phone again, one bar of signal. She called the emergency line, gave the address, begged them to hurry. Back inside, she sat beside him, holding his hand. "I don't know who you are," she whispered, "but someone still wants you alive. Just stay with me. Help is coming." But what Mira didn't know, was that Arvind Malhotra hadn't spoken to anyone in weeks. And she was the first person in years to touch his hand without expecting something in return. The ambulance arrived 15 minutes later, sirens slicing through the silent streets. Mira ran to the gate, waving frantically. 2 paramedics jumped out. She led them inside, her shoes squelching with every soaked step. They found Arvind still breathing, barely. Severe dehydration. Blood pressure crashing, one of them muttered. As they worked swiftly to stabilize him, Mira stepped back, her heart pounding. Her phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from her manager. 2 from customers. 1 harsh message blinking on her screen. You abandoned your delivery zone. Your account has been temporarily suspended. She swallowed hard. Her job. The only thing keeping her family fed. Gone. But when she looked at the pale man on the stretcher, tubes now attached to his arms, something told her she had made the right call, even if no one else would understand. You coming with us? A medic asked. Mira blinked. Me? You found him. He might need someone to sign papers if he can't speak. There's no one else here. She nodded, hesitated, then followed them into the ambulance. The doors slammed shut behind her. At the hospital, everything moved fast. Nurses. IVs. Doctors barking orders. She sat in the waiting room, dripping wet, ignored by everyone, clutching a biscuit pack she hadn't opened. Her phone died an hour ago. Still, she waited. She thought of Amma back home. Would she be worried? Hungry? Would Adi understand why she didn't come back with dinner? A nurse finally approached. You brought in Mr. Arvind Malhotra? Mira stood. Yes. Is he okay? He's in critical condition but stable. The doctor wants to speak with you. She followed the nurse into a quiet room where a doctor in glasses stood, flipping through a chart. You're a relative? He asked. No, sir. I'm a delivery worker. I just found him. He studied her. He was lucky. Another hour and he wouldn't have made it. Malnutrition. Internal bleeding. He hasn't eaten in days. But this is the strange part. Mira leaned in. He's not just anyone. He's the Arvind Malhotra. Founder of Mahadev Group. Once worth billions. He disappeared from public life 6 years ago. Mira stared. I didn't know. The doctor nodded. Well, you saved his life. That means something. Are you sure you're not connected to him? I'm sure, she said softly. I just couldn't walk away. The doctor looked surprised, maybe even moved. Then came a new voice. Who is this girl? A tall man in a suit entered. Cold eyes. Sharp voice. The doctor gestured toward Mira. She found him unconscious. Got him here in time. The man gave her a once-over. You'll need to speak with his legal team. There are matters of estate. Identity. Property. His lawyers will want statements. Estate. Mira frowned. You trespassed onto private property. Touching a high-profile individual, in this climate, he let the sentence hang. Mira's blood ran cold. So saving someone's life came with threats. She took a step back, heart thudding. All she wanted to do was help. Now the world was watching. And someone clearly didn't want her involved. Mira didn't sleep that night. Back in her tiny one-room home, Amma's voice was hoarse with worry. You lost your job again. Mira stirred the watery dal silently. It was a choice, Amma. A man was dying. Amma coughed. Will a dying man pay our rent? Mira didn't respond. She didn't know how. By morning, her scooter still refused to start. Her phone was dead. And no one from the hospital had called. But she couldn't sit still. Something about Arvind Malhotra's eyes haunted her, like they knew pain, betrayal, and yet still carried a strange kind of hope. She returned to the mansion. The front gate was open this time. No guards. Just silence again. Inside, the house was colder. As if it, too, had suffered a shock. She wasn't sure what she was looking for, maybe a clue, maybe closure. Something to make sense of why a man with wealth beyond imagination was left to rot alone. She walked past the foyer, into the study where she'd first spotted the landline. The air was heavy with the scent of old paper and neglect. Books lined the shelves, thick volumes about business, philosophy, poetry. Then her eyes landed on a photograph, Arvind in his younger days, standing with a woman and a small child. They looked happy. Whole. What had happened? She reached for the frame, and as she did, something strange happened. A draft of air blew from behind the bookshelf. Curious, she examined the wall more closely. One shelf didn't align with the rest. A small latch, barely visible, sat hidden behind the books. She pressed it. Click. The wall creaked, and part of the shelf swung open, revealing a narrow passage. Every instinct told her to stop. But curiosity pulled her forward. The air inside was different, cleaner. As if someone had been there recently. She followed the passage until it opened into a hidden room, lit by a single dim bulb. Stacks of journals. Piles of unopened mail. Old newspaper clippings pinned to the wall. Articles about Arvind's company, his downfall, a scandal involving his son, embezzlement, lawsuits. Mira's eyes scanned the headlines. Tycoon's son disappears after massive fraud. Arvind Malhotra steps down, refuses to speak. There were letters, unsent, written by Arvind himself. One addressed, "To my granddaughter, if you ever find this." Mira stood frozen. He had family. But no one came. Why? Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. She turned, startled. The same suited man from the hospital stood at the entrance of the secret passage. This time, his voice was sharp. Cold. "You shouldn't be here." "I didn't steal anything," Mira said, stepping back. He moved closer. "That man doesn't need your sympathy. You've done enough damage. Leave, before someone makes you." Mira's fists clenched. "Why are you hiding this? He has no one. He's dying." The man's smirk was bitter. "Exactly. And when he dies, all of this becomes someone else's problem. Don't think your little hero act gets you a seat at the table." She stared at him, then at the letter. Maybe she wasn't family. But she wasn't walking away again. Not now. 3 days passed. Mira didn't hear a word from the hospital. No calls. No updates. She tried once to visit, but the receptionist said, "Family only." The man in the suit, Rajan, had made sure of that. She sat on her slum's rooftop at sunset, watching her little brother Adi kick a flat football across the narrow lanes. Her mother slept inside, wrapped in a worn shawl. Mira felt the weight of it all, no job, no savings, and now a strange ache in her chest she couldn't explain. She hadn't saved Arvind Malhotra for fame or money. But knowing he was surrounded by snakes while she was pushed out like dirt, that stung. She thought about the letter addressed to his granddaughter. Where was she? Why hadn't she come? Why was everyone so eager for Arvind to die quietly? That night, just before dawn, someone knocked on her door. A man stood outside, not Rajan, but an older gentleman, wearing glasses and holding a leather file. "Are you Mira Sharma?" he asked. "Yes. I'm Mr. Malhotra's attorney." Her breath caught. "Is he alive?" "Yes. In fact, he regained consciousness yesterday. His first question was, 'Where is the girl who found me?' Tears filled her eyes. "He instructed me to bring you this," the lawyer said, handing her the file. Inside was a letter. To Mira Sharma. "If you're reading this, then fate, unkind as it may be, finally did something right. I don't remember much about the day you found me, but I remember your eyes. No one's looked at me that way in years, with concern, not calculation. Everyone around me has wanted something from me. Money. Power. Access. But you gave something. You gave up your job. Your safety. Your time. And you didn't even know who I was. You remind me of someone, my daughter. She died young. My only granddaughter vanished with her father after what happened to the company. But you, Mira, reminded me what it feels like to be human again. So I want to offer you something. Not out of pity, but trust. I want you to help me rebuild what was lost. If you're willing, a place waits for you in my home. Not as a servant, but as family. Your choice. Arvind Malhotra. Mira blinked hard. Is this real? The lawyer smiled. He's asked for you to come. Today, if you're ready. 2 weeks later, news headlines exploded across the internet. Billionaire resurfaces after 6-year absence. Unknown girl named in recovery, who is Mira Sharma? Inside the mystery, the delivery girl who saved an empire. Mira didn't care about the noise. She had moved into the mansion, not because it was big, but because someone finally made her feel like she belonged. Arvind sat beside her in a wheelchair, feeding the birds in the courtyard. You never asked me for anything, he said. Mira smiled. Maybe because I knew life would finally give something back. He chuckled. Still want to deliver food? She laughed. No. But I wouldn't mind delivering second chances. And this time, no one could take it away.